When I was putting together the book, I like to tell people that it wasn't so much an aha moment as much as it was a gridlock moment. And I was sitting in gridlock one day, just upset about just how long my commute was. I had a 2-hour commute one way to get to a job. And so very often I'd be on the road for 4 hours and listening to the news. And really frustrated and feeling like, oh, I hate Los Angeles. I got to get out of here. I really, but that wasn't what it was. It was, I hated sitting in traffic. And so I made a pact with myself that what I was going to do was really find out is like, am I done with the city or not? And so I decided that I was going to get up early, really early on a Sunday morning when I could move through the city with more ease and began to explore LA again, and to see if what mattered to me the most was still here. What did that feel like? What did it look like? So I would go out early Sunday mornings just after sunup, and I would just pick a neighborhood and park and walk and take notes and talk to people. And then this became this sort of regular thing, and I started to, take pictures with my phone, and then I started to take pictures with my camera, and then a narrative started to come together. And people kept asking me, "Are you working on something? Are you working on something?" And I didn't think so in the beginning. It was just I was working on my relationship with Los Angeles, but it coalesced into a book. Los Angeles is made up of many cities, and that's what we talk about. And they're diverse neighborhoods. They define themselves in different ways. Neighborhoods have really distinct feels. They did feels especially when I grew up. You could tell when you entered Santa Monica, or you could tell when you entered Venice. There was just something about not just the weather and the atmosphere, but just the way people dressed, the way people interacted with one another. And when I was growing up, a lot of it is the way I defined myself as an Angelino had to do with the fact that I felt like I wanted to be part of all of it. And so I'd get in my car and I would drive around and have a little bit of Santa Monica for the day, or have a little bit of Venice, or have a little bit of downtown or Echo Park. And they all had distinct, again, a very distinct feel to them. And that was, to me, like the beauty of this place is that you got to meet people from all over the world and listen to their stories and eat their food and see the world through their prism and their story. And that, to me, was like the bounty of being from, a place that had all of these different places and cities inside of it. One of the things that has happened in the last few years is I've watched Los Angeles change and watch how the distinctness of those neighborhoods go away has been twofold. Lots of urban renewal, lots of building of big spaces that seem sort of blank and flat. There's a flattening going on to the culture. And then there's, just like so many American cities, lots of gentrification that's happening, and that is pushing these old neighborhoods with these old buildings and that flavor and color that you associate with certain neighborhoods. That's going away. Los Angeles is full of phantoms. I don't mean apparitions as in bump in the night specters, but the elusive traces of the many cities beneath the city, barely discernible, vanishing rapidly. I'm not sure when or why I felt I needed to, but somewhere in the last few years, I began what I can only describe as chasing ghosts. First, it was faint, stylized lettering sketched along the side of last century's brick and stucco buildings, making up downtown Los Angeles' historic core. Yet, before I knew it, I found myself returning again and again to the long stretches of gray boulevards just beyond it, lined with low high-rises. We grew up being lectured that heights here were once restricted due to earthquake anxieties. Truth told, they were due to aesthetics. that no downtown building, with just a few exceptions, should be taller than City Hall. Standing among them, I'd eavesdrop. So many edifices etched with snippets of past stories, the tailors and jewelers, the busy emporiums that once carried notions, penny diversions and entertainments, and of course, what so many came west to begin with, the advertisements for space for let, private rooms, nice place. Elaborate antique family trees bloomed along stone walls, faded but still apparent. Businesses built on the shoulders of fathers and sons and brothers, cabinet makers and apothecaries, legacies embroidered in the memory of brick facades, if you can pause long enough to see them. This flattening of neighborhoods happen. I think it affects both the people who have lived there a long time and as well as the new people who come in. The people who live there who've lived in these neighborhoods for a long time and they start to see the features of their neighborhoods go away. I think there's a term that one of these long-term neighbors use called root shock. And it's when you've lived in a place for a long time and you've been moved or the place has changed around you. And it's trauma. It's trauma because it's like, well, I didn't change, but the place around me has changed. So there's a disorientation about place. You don't feel connected to community anymore. Your family and friends have moved away. And trying to find another place to go is difficult, especially if you've been there generations. Your family has been there generations and you've been there years. For the new people, I think you just end up like living in a place that you don't know why it's significant or what people fought for to live in that neighborhood. And you're kind of just, again, back to that set metaphor, you're just kind of, this place is just a backdrop for you to build like, oh, I couldn't move into X neighborhood, so I'm just gonna make this, that neighborhood, or, this is just my backdrop. Instead of forcing it to be something else, why don't you give yourself over to it and find out why people have been in a place for a long time and, why they nurture it and why they care about it, let it shape you. What was the gift of Los Angeles' mix if you gave yourself over to it, if you let it mark you? What was its gift to the world? I've always found it difficult to put into words. It's a sunk down deep in feeling. Instead, I often grasp for an approximation, perhaps a metaphor. Sometimes it's like a soundtrack, a ragged guitar solo cutting through sleek, appointed calm, a slinky piano fill. It's a tweaked and bent hip-hop sample, flat and sly as a toy piano. It's the Doppler effect of an ice cream truck slurring its way down a long block. Other times, it's scents, garlic and flash-fried fish, gardenias and star jasmine, or the season when you can't discern if it's brush fire or asado or chimney smoke, or it's our singular intervals, a way of telling time. Scrounging up car ashtray change, hot to the touch, for August scoops of thrifty drugstore ice cream. It's a Saturday night fleet of low and slow sedans, baseline thudding. It's fire season's fury, and it's pink skies. It's summer not ever really giving in, or simply taking in the sparkle dust of city lights as you ride the dip out of Baldwin Hills, heading north on La Brea just after gloaming. Can I get a witness? Can I put it in a bottle? This was the text experience that ran parallel to what was the working narrative of native LA. Hollywood and beaches, cool indoor, outdoor, tropical expanses, the endless cocktail parties. People can fight against the flattening of their neighborhoods is to understand that, some of the features of places, architecture for one, how things came to be, that story, those neighborhood stories, if those can stay in place in some way, and I know that there are people now actively going and are part of a neighborhood story projects that are being launched. There's one that's getting ready to start in the Limerick Park, Baldwin Hills area, for example, where they are looking at trying to get to some of the elders so that we can know the stories of that place. Some of it is going to exist in public art. Some of it's going to exist in libraries. But just so that when people arrive, they know, they know what.
Can you pick it up where,
Yeah.
just so when people arrive?
Just so that when people arrive, they know what they are sitting on. And, you know, I don't expect things, of course, you know, we don't live in a museum, but we should absolutely be able in some ways to honor that past.
Excellent.
I really hope that the readers of this book decide that they want to explore LA, that they really want to push into LA and sample it and feel it and taste it. And because it really, if you give that time to that, you are rewarded in such amazing ways. And I hope that people can just sort of like let go of their assumptions about LA and really like try it out and see what it actually can be.